We thought most fitting as we're launching a podcast, an internal podcast for our team at Ideas Collide, that we're naming Conversations Around a Table, to bring the original three back to the table and have a quick conversation. This is where it all started, and it's exciting to sit down and talk a little bit about background and how we got to where we are. But the whole premise of Conversations Around the Table is from the very beginning when we started brainstorming this. I mean, there was dinners with you, me, and Karam about creating what is now Ideas Collide. There were many conversations with Mike and developing what this company could become. And I think it was just a little bit of an idea that we just were talking about. And you and I, Rebecca, would do a lot of things in Conversation Around the Table with some clients that we were really wanting to attract in even early on. So we would collaborate on a lot of different things before Ideas Collide was even a notion. So there was a lot of conversations around the table around where we are today. And I think the premise of that was always that we wanted to have this open collaborative spirit, a drive for curiosity and finding solutions, and being open to have conversations, voices around the table that will help influence and build the best creative solution. So as we look back, maybe we could start with, just some quick backgrounds, like where we were all at when this was just starting to be talked about and developed. Mike, maybe you could give us a little bit of that background.
I mean, I think when I started out in my career, I didn't necessarily think that I thought I was going to be in kind of corporate America for most of my career. I think that was the plan. But early on, even still while I was in college, I started to take on little side projects and marketing projects. And I always had this, it was always really exciting to me to be able to kind of take it myself and feel like more ownership over it and kind of be able to have a lot more control over what I was doing. And so early on, even as I started out of my career, there was always a side business going on with me with, little projects that was always really exciting to me. And as, I continued through my career, those side projects got a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And then, when we got to, mid 2000s, you were getting ready to take off. I was doing a fair amount of side work too at the time. And, it just seemed like, wow, why don't I just try and do this full time and, not have those constraints of, a big corporation and other things. And I could really just dive into what I was doing on the side full time. And it was super exciting time, being involved in helping you kind of think about Ideas Collide and, what you and Rebecca were trying to do was really, really exciting. So it was fun to be involved in that part of it. And, as I continued to do my freelance work, it became like there was freelance work now coming from Matt and Rebecca's, side of the shop. So it just got to a point where I'm just going to do this full time. And that was it. And I took the leap.
Rebecca, so for you, what was part of your background and connection to all of this?
Sure. So at the time I was working at Intel, and I had been there for quite some time already, maybe 5 or 6 years, I think was when we started really talking about Ideas Collide. And I just remember, there was a lot going on in my life. I had one child, so we had a little young one, and then Alex, I was either pregnant with him or having him at some point during that trajectory. And, work was really interesting because I was traveling a lot. I was working on big projects, but there was something about kind of like what you said, Mike, wanting to own my destiny a lot more. And for me, there was also a lot of personal things in terms of, really thinking like, okay, I have kids now. Do I really want to have a role where I have to be constantly traveling? And I could kind of sense that there was something about maybe staying at Intel that I wanted to work on Intel stuff. I loved Intel as a company and as a brand, but the rigidity of working there, of the cubicles, of the gray walls, of the, just the structure of it didn't seem to suit me particularly anymore, especially trying to navigate life with young children. And I remember just thinking, okay, well, what if other things are possible? And I could really unleash more of my capabilities, not being confined to that big company environment. So I was always really excited when we would do these freelance projects. We would work weekends and nights. on those things. And it was really, sometimes it was really rewarding work. Sometimes it was really hard work. Like, remember doing the Gold Canyon catalog, writing all that catalog copy and writing
and smelling so many candles and be like,
candles,
how do we describe this one in a different way?
Yes, we had to describe candle fragrances. And then I remember having to write speeches for Karen Waseth for convention. And that was, I actually really enjoyed that. I loved the speech writing part, but it was hard, right? Because figuring out how to convey a story was never easy. So those were kind of some of our early Ideas Collide projects, which were the precursors to actually all of us leaving our corporate jobs and deciding to dive into this full time and take that leap.
Well, I have to give Rebecca the biggest credit here because she heard me talk about this for many, many years, as I mentioned, and many conversations around the table and dinners and friends. And then at one point, I vividly remember she was like, would you stop talking about it and just do something about it? And that's very Rebecca, right? She was just like, hey, either do it or don't, but don't just talk about it, act on it. And that was really that leap that we took. And, now as I look at where we are now and think about, we have some fun pictures here in the room with us of like some of these conversations around the table of little milestones in the agency, where we're looking at a picture of the original desk where we mapped out the brainstorming of Ideas Collide. And I remember writing on a piece of paper, invent, integrate, impact, and writing down like true give back and all things possible, which are all things that we still carry with us today. We did a lot of conference calls around that table with Mike around what the logo would eventually look like once we landed on the name of Ideas Collide. So we always wanted to have this curiosity, this collaborative spirit. And eventually that came into like when we built our first little office space. We realized as we started to come together and partner, and more opportunities came through, and it wasn't like little freelance projects, it was like legit projects. We had a conversation around table in Paris where we got that first phone call where it wasn't doing just like one-off projects for Gold Canyon. It suddenly became, we got that message, and Karen was there with us outside a cafe in Paris, and it was like, hey, you're our new agency of record. We're putting you on retainer. And I remember Karen, you and I all looking at each other going like, we've got to like hire people. We need an office. We got to go do these things. And Rebecca was like, okay, let's make it happen. And so we moved into a condo.
Just down the street.
Because we wanted to be scrappy, lean. We didn't want to incur debt. So yeah, we moved into a condo up the street.
Well, and remember why? Because our house was under construction. We were remodeling our
Originally,
house.
we were going to have a little home office was the original idea. And we're like, okay, this now is not, this idea is not going to fit a little home office. So
yes, we rented that little condo, Casa Arcadia.
Yeah.
Casa Arcadia.
Across the street from the Oso.
So yeah, perfect location. And we turned it into a co-working / co-living.
We were early on the co-working space.
We invented Airbnb before Airbnb was a thing.
It's like we work in Airbnb. I'll roll into one.
That's very true because of Mike. You want to talk about your condo
so
experience?
I would start coming down for
because you were living in Utah at the
I was
time.
still,
I don't think people realize that.
For the first 3 years of the agency existence, I was in Salt Lake, and at the time didn't really have any ideas of moving down here. I just assumed that I had clients up there too, and then there was more partnering here. So I started to come down more often, but being the young, scrappy, we didn't have money for hotels and car rentals and things like that. But we did have a futon, and the condo had a shower. And so I would stay in I would sleep in Matt's office after everybody left. I'd roll the futon out. I could not do that today with my back, but back then I was young and it was no problem. And I just made sure I got up and was showered and ready to go before anybody else popped in. Claudia loves to tease me that she would always be there the first. She'd always go, Mike, are you decent?
Yeah, she would say that. Are you decent?
Yeah.
The original co-working space.
Yes, co-working, co-living. It was quite the experience.
It was an adventure. It felt exciting. It felt really exciting.
And I want to take credit for setting up the technology. I was the original.
You were original IT for
IT.
I didn't know that. Yeah,
I was the CIO of Ideas Collide. I set up the router. I selected the password.
I think you set up the
I
printers.
set up the phone and the printers. Made sure that all of the technology worked so we could do our our scrappy little work around the table.
And if you could visualize it, you would walk into this little condo. The living room was the conference room, and that was the spirit of. That was intentional. We were like, let's just have a big table here, like a big working space that everybody just comes around, collaborates, and that was every day. We'd all walk in and we just like sit down. We had that one table. We had, I think, 2 phones in the office, so we were always fighting over phones.
Oh yeah, I remember
because this was really before iPhone. Like the iPhone came out 3 years later.
But that was,
it was BlackBerry,
and
like landlines. Mm-hmm. And then the back 2 bedrooms of the condo were offices. Rebecca had one, I had one, and then the kitchen was our break room and our IT room and our copy center, and that was the setup. And I think we had about at max capacity. I think we once had 8 people working in that space. Parking was a huge problem. The neighbors were starting to wonder, what are they doing in there? Clients would show up and they'd be like, this is boutique-y, but kind of weird. Yes. And I remember once we were starting to get larger and more prominent clients. And then we were like, let's meet at Starbucks. And they'd be like, but do you have offices? Yeah, we have offices, but let's meet at Starbucks. And that's, still norm today. But at the time they started like, well, we want to go to your offices. And we were really pushing to like, yeah, it's not going to really work for us to meet in the office.
Who was that website redesign company? We were doing a redesign for them. Was that
we did
Gold Canyon?
We did Gold Canyon. We did tons of websites.
But there was one where they came into the office and they actually said something. They were like, this is strange. We need to show them our new office so they know
that we're legit.
But we came a long way, that's for sure. One of my favorite stories, remember going to Gold Canyon and they were out of rental cars and our car.
That was the original pitch.
Yes. So this is a story I think I always love to tell the story about scrappiness and entrepreneurship. You do anything, right? So at the time we were down to 1 car at the Clyde household. You were living out of town, Mike, so you had no car here. And something that people who live in Arizona know is that your battery is always dying here because it's 1,000 degrees in the summer. And batteries here just don't last.
This also predates Uber.
Yeah, there's
Getting
no
a taxi
Uber.
was impossible.
There's no apps. Okay, so think pre all of that. We have this critical meeting with the CEO of a client that we're pitching and his entire executive staff. We have prepared for weeks for this presentation. It is, where we're going to go in and seal the deal. And we get into the car and the battery doesn't work. And there's literally no time to figure out how to jump it. I think we even tried doing that. Nothing.
We did.
Nothing worked.
We tried
jumping.
And then we started calling
AAA.
car rental companies, and it was Phoenix Race Weekend.
Yeah, PIR was going on.
Yeah, so there was no rental cars in the entire state.
We called every rental car agency trying to get a car. Nothing.
And we're like, we're on a clock. We're now down to an hour and a half to be at the meeting.
And I was the one who had the brilliant idea. I said, let's rent a U-Haul truck.
Because there's a U-Haul center just around the corner.
Yes. I said, U-Haul will rent us a vehicle. We just need 4 wheels and an engine. It doesn't matter that there's this giant trailer.
Well, I was hoping it was just they rent the truck. So I'm like, oh, it's a truck. No big deal. But we go there and it's the only thing they have is the 18-foot U-Haul. So we drive to Gold Canyon, which is, an hour from the office today.
South Chandler.
We drive there and we're about to pull up and we were embarrassed because they had a huge conference room that looked out over the parking lot. And we were embarrassed to be like, we can't show up to this pitch in the U-Haul and get out and go check in and then go present. They may think we're really not ready for
this is our office. We just drive it around.
This is where we live.
So I'm like, okay, we're just gonna have to brave it. Let's just subtly go into the parking lot. And if we park on the side, they won't notice. So we go in, we subtly go in, we park, we go through the lobby, we check in everything, we're all set up. And then their VP, it was Colby, their VP of sales, he's the first one to walk in, and the CEO and the CMO are there, and then the VP of sales. And the VP of sales comes in and he's like, who parked a U-Haul out in the front of the parking lot? That's really weird. And we're like, we're moving furniture.
Funny story.
But we capitalized on that moment because then we went home that day and we were like, we need to buy furniture for the office. We bought a bunch of, which was the futon that ended up, that's when we bought the futon. We was like, hey, we have this U-Haul. We might as well buy furniture for the office now because we got it. Lean, scrappy.
Oh my gosh, that U-Haul smelled so bad too.
It
smelled like
it was
sweat.
the stick shift one. We had the stick shift.
I was like, I hope we don't smell bad during this meeting because
those are the links we went to win business at the beginning. So let's jump to 20. Just real briefly, another conversation around the table when we got the office. So July 2009, we finally were able to secure a real office. We moved in. I think one of the first things, Rebecca, you and I went shopping for furniture, and we didn't want to have a traditional lobby. We were like, what could be a different type of lobby? What could be unique? And we put this big open table in the lobby. That's what used to be in the front of the office. And we've tried to carry that through. Like when you walk into our Portland office, big conference table right when you walk in. When you walk into the office today, there's a big open table. There's big open tables in all of our offices. Try to keep that spirit of collaboration, connection. What was it like? I mean, you were both part of that experience, assembling furniture, putting together all the details of the office. What was that like? Those first few scrappy moments of building the office itself.
I mean, I remember just thinking, can we ever afford this rent? That was my biggest concern.
Well, and we had to sign a 5-year lease. And I'm like, there's no way, I don't know how to do this for 5 years.
The
like,
lease,
how are we going to pay for this for 5 years of growth?
Well, truthfully, without that, I probably wouldn't have come. I mean,
you were like done with the condo.
Well, the truth is, I'm like, I'm not going to move down, like, be in like a condo, right? Because I'm like, I have my home office. So I think it got to the point where I say that flippantly, but truthfully, it was about the company growing and getting to a point where, hey, we are moving. And, you know, Matt and I had these conversations where he's like, hey, you know, the way the company's growing, you can continue to stay there, but I'm gonna have to hire someone down here. We're gonna start building a team down here. It's gonna grow.
Yeah, we really wanted you here.
So, you know, that was, and that fact that the office was happening for me was kind of those things that like, it just felt like there was tons of momentum and I could see it happening. And so it was really part of the reason why I realized it was time to kind of take the leap. So when I moved here, it was, yes, the office was set up, sort of. The funny thing is I've been in that same office.
Yeah, you were set up in your office and you have not left that office. It's changed.
The entire agency has changed around me.
That's crazy.
That just shows you we've committed to like keeping you at the center of the agency.
Mike
Don't
does
disrupt
not like
him.
change.
Rebecca and I have moved offices a lot. Like I think we moved offices 4 times during the pandemic.
I was open to move, but somehow it just always worked out that it was a right spot where everything could bounce around.
The office has been
it's on your
redesigned
desk
like
profile.
10 times.
On your desktop profile, you're very much an S, and you've got that S in you, like steady, consistent. So that's why
I wasn't arguing about it. I was fine to stay there, but
yeah, but we have come a long way from the days of assembling our own IKEA furniture. I mean, we would bring those chairs, those red chairs with the holes in them from IKEA that were so uncomfortable. We had those all over the office.
I think for the first couple of months I was here, there was a round side table. It was almost like a side table, but it was a round. I don't know what kind of table it was, but it wasn't like a full table. And I just pulled a chair and was working there for months. Matt came and was like, we got to get you like a real desk. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess so. I mean, I never really thought about it because I was so used to just kind of setting up work and working whatever was there. But it started getting weird as clients were coming in going, why is there no desk in this office? And
that is strange. Yeah, I remember it was a black table, a black round table. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
It was more like a side table.
It was like a side table.
It was like an oversized side table. Yeah. So it's so nice, you know, now to have proper industrial office furniture that's made for the workplace as opposed to our weird hodgepodge collection.
And even the office
furniture.
Then, not compared to what it is now, was totally different. It was still very much it seemed like compared to this even, it was a much more small office. I mean, there were definitely more offices, but it was, you know, still kind of a.
But I always loved the view of Camelback Mountain. Yeah. That's what really does it here. There's nothing that beats that view.
Let's now jump to, you know, where we are now, and maybe you could think about, you know, what's that one win or maybe a something that you're most proud of as you now see where we are and where we've been, and the team, all the different office configurations, the tables that we've sat around and built this business around. What are you most proud of?
I mean, for me, it's always been exciting to see the growth of some of those early accounts that were part of the beginning, like Intel, for example, which started our Intel projects in the early days were minuscule.
I used to do demo signage. Remember?
Demo signage.
I did demo signage for like 2 years on Intel.
Remember, we used to normalize data from trade shows to upload into Eloqua.
All the business cards.
I mean, that was we would scan business cards or type in data from business cards into lists. I mean, we would be up all night doing that in the early days. And now Ideas Collide basically manages all of the marketing automation for the entire company.
It's amazing.
You know, one of the largest Fortune 500 companies in the world. So, and not just them, but many others in that same industry. So it's exciting to see how that just tiny little starting point just became such a big part of the business, and teams entirely built around it.
What I like about that is, which kind of fits to our whole focus and theme of 2022, is seeing the opportunity, which you would never have seen. Like if you were doing like data uploads and business card, I remember like bringing in bags of
business cards, yes.
coming out of a trade show, and we'd be like, "What are we doing?" And it would be like, "No, this is how we're going to build our marketing automation business. We're going to show just step by step how we're going to get there." And that's seeing the opportunity. You could be really, blind to it, being like, okay, this is just data management and administrative work. This isn't very sophisticated, but it got us to where we need to be. It showed us that we're willing to see the opportunity and build a solution around it step by step. So I really like that one.
It's amazing what those things turn into. Like I never would have thought, and similar, I remember going to these first Best Western meetings where I would go with Matt, and we were in a room with like 5 agencies. And, there's a New York agency, and there's the LA agency, and there's there's all these people and all these.
There's a Boston agency.
There's always a Chicago agency.
Yeah, and all these people, and they're talking about this.
Chicago, And we were like, oh, you people from Phoenix.
I mean, we were working on, like I said, we were working on really small projects with like Best Western Reward, and so, we were there, but now you think, oh my gosh, all those agencies are gone. I mean, we're literally shot their television commercial last week, which is, I would never in a million years have dreamed that at that point.
I know. So. It's kind of cool. Like the other day I was at Topgolf and a Best Western commercial played.
That's us.
And I was, because they're running all the sports channels. Yep. And I was like, I took a little pause there for a minute, and I just said, my agency shot that. That's super cool.
Like our production team.
This whole group of people came together that started from this table and produced that. And I just kind of took a little moment and then kept going along.
Any other moments we're proud of?
Having team members and seeing team members grow and helping those team members grow and seeing those people come along for the journey. That's been a real, I feel very fortunate, that we've had people stay with us as long as we have and been able to see, their growth and get to participate in this too. They started out, some of these people started out right out of college, and to see where they've gone in their careers has been really cool too. So that's something I didn't expect, out of this. I was always thinking about the work and, doing this, but really the team part's been really kind of a nice surprise.
Yeah, I think for me, the team, the relationships are extremely rewarding, and even seeing those that have gone on to do great things in their careers outside the agency and build their dreams has been really exciting and rewarding.
The impact that we have, it goes way, way beyond these 4 walls.
I see that as a very collaborative, collective effort of our team and the 3 of us as founders. So thank you for being on the journey. I'm excited about what's to come in the future. And from the first conversation around the table to this one now, 17 years later, I'm really excited about having very many more and more to share with this new venture of launching and sharing via podcasts and more conversation around the tables to come.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Great chat.
We'll talk soon.
Good to catch up with everyone again.